Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, get access to a digital archive of all of my previous comic book work, access to a Patreon exclusive Discord server where we share artwork, feedback, tips, tricks, tools, and more, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. There's a link in the description to this video. And speaking of bonus live streams twice a month, we've got our next session, Art Book Study Group, coming up this Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It'll be recorded and then reposted for anyone who misses it, wants to catch the replay. This time we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Normally with Art Book Study Group, we dig into some of the best art books around and try to suck out all the knowledge we can, just doing studies. I share my process of how I study from art books and try to retain knowledge and grow my skills. This time we're going to be doing kind of a live figure drawing session from photos. So for Patreon subscribers, make sure to tune in for that. And if you are not a current Patreon subscriber, click the link in the description, head on over and sign up. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, get work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my books, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you can head on over to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can also pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character sketches, page layouts, thumbnails, script excerpts, photo reference, and more. Get all of that at amazon.jeremy.net. And there's also book flip throughs on the YouTube homepage. So if you head on over to the YouTube channel, you can see there's flip throughs. You can actually go and see the insides of the books. There are links of all these. There's links to all these in the description for the video. And if you're watching on Twitch, there's links on the About Me tab. All right. So let's see here. See, Amaris is already in the chat. How you doing, Amaris? Byron's here. I'm doing well. I hope you guys are too. Let's see here. By the way, I realized before we dive into today's live stream, I'll have to add a link to this after the video, but I think the link, if you were just go to prints.jeremy.net, it'll take you there. But I finally finished the, where is it over here? This piece that I've been working on, Medusa Entwined is what I call it. I finally have it finished. It's actually available on my on jeremy.net. If you just go to my main website, you can pick it up there. It's in 2 sizes, 16 by 20 and 8 by 10. So that print is now finished. It's available. You guys can check it out. I'm very proud of how it came out. Let's see. I've got a copy of the 8 by 10 one around here somewhere. Yeah, if I switch back to the big camera, I like to get a physical sample of the prints before I put them on sale, just so I can get a look and see how they came out. So this is the 8 by 10 version. And because of the light that I have, the camera that's above me, the statue is a little bit blown out, but maybe you can see him better if I bring this close. But, you know, I had to do a little bit of color adjustment before sending it to the printer to kind of tweak it and make sure the colors come out the way I want to, because, you know, getting the colors to look the way they look on an iPad are damn hard. But a little bit of work, I think I got it pretty close. Anyway, that print's available. And if you guys are looking for some new wall decor, maybe go check it out. I'm also trying to figure out the best way to crop it to put it on a t-shirt. So stay tuned for that. That'll probably be coming soon. Let's see here. Oh, and Amara says, I had another accident, injured my foot. I am sorry to hear that. You are super accident prone. You've got to be very careful. And James, approving of the final version of the Medusa of the Gorgon Entwined piece. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad you guys hung in there for as long as it took me to finish that one. It was probably one of the more challenging pieces I've done. That said, I may still go back and redraw it again as just a black and white ink piece, because I've been sort of playing with the idea of like trying to do digital painting versus my normal comic book style, because I've been drawing comics for so many years. It just seems natural to me to just do things in black and white ink. And I want to see if there's a difference in how people respond to things that are trying to do that are more fully painted versus doing things that are maybe just gray tone or monochromatic with my traditional comic book style. However, somehow in the time between me starting this live stream and now, I seem to have lost my little drawing glove. I literally have no idea where I took it off and where I set it down. Ah, it's in my pocket. That's the weirdest thing. I was wearing it when I started, and I have no idea at what point I took it off or why. Anyways, let's see here. James says, makes me want to watch Clash of the Titans again. Ray Harryhausen is an inspiration. You know, I haven't watched the original Clash of the Titans in ages, but I think I do need to go back and give that a look-see, because it was definitely a classic. I mean, to be honest, I didn't think it was wonderful, but I even thought the remake wasn't that bad. I mean, they definitely, for all the places where the story may not have been as good, they definitely brought it with the visual effects, and I think they stepped things up with the Kraken. I mean, Harryhausen's animations, like, it's the weird, quirky movement is what makes it cool, but that new Kraken was also pretty awesome. So they're different, but also dope. See here. Yes, I definitely. Yeah, both James and Byron are like, James is like, don't you hate it when you lose stuff? And Byron's like, when you like trying to find glasses when they're on your face, which oddly enough, I do wear glasses too, but I have like a little clip, like a little pouch that I clip to my belt, and I just slide the glasses in there. Yeah, Mara says, according to her mom, she's a walking accident. Got to be careful. So anyway, a brief update in terms of comics. I am still writing my next comic project, and I'm not happy with how the story is yet. I'm just going to keep hammering away at it till I'm happy with it. And I feel like there's not a whole lot for me to show you in terms of making comics until that my outline is really tightened up. I don't know how long that's going to take. It may be another month, might be 2 months. I'm just going to keep working away at it till I get it to the point where I can start drawing pages, or at least start drawing thumbnails. So in the meantime, in my huge sketchbook of ideas, I've got a lot of different stuff that I've drawn. But this piece right here, I actually have an ink drawing that I've done, and it's a horse with serpents in her mane, and I call it Mare Dusa as opposed to Medusa because I'm corny and I like puns. And the traditionally drawn ink sketch that I did of this, I posted it on Pinterest. For some reason, it gets so many shares and likes, and it's like, it seems to be people's most favorite thing that I have drawn on Pinterest. And I thought, well, why don't I do a cleaner, tighter version for a t-shirt? Just thought, let's see if it works as a shirt. That said, so far I've gotten this far in terms of a rough sketch, and all these little tendrils that are sticking out. Make sure I'm on the right layer. Here we go. Yeah, all these little tendrils that are sticking out are going to be different little snake heads. And I realized stuff all the time. I'm drawing and I just have thoughts about different ways to approach the process. And I think I was talking about this with somebody on one of these live streams a few weeks back about the idea of, let me go one color lighter. Yeah, that's right. Using silhouettes to help design better artwork. It occurred to me that maybe before I go into, from this rough sketch, before going into a cleaned up line drawing, that maybe it would be worth it for me to try doing this, working out a silhouette. So I started drawing this in as a stronger silhouette just to see, I don't know, how well it reads, see whether I end up deciding that I need to get rid of some, change some of these tendrils, add more, see if there's places where there's tangents where I didn't think there were. So I'm going to play with this for a while. And I have to tell you that this is one of those sort of meditative processes, in the sense that, kind of like, I know you may hate it if you're doing a freelance project, you're working with someone and you ask them, well, what do you like? And they're like, well, I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it. Figuring out what's wrong with a silhouette and trying to revise it is kind of one of those things for me. I can't tell you that there's a formulaic process where I'm like, follow these steps to improve your silhouette. I don't have that yet. And who knows, maybe doing this exercise will help me develop that. But what I can tell you right now is that I just need to move pieces around until I feel like it is stronger and works better. So I don't know what it is that's going to give me a good silhouette. I just know that I'm going to keep tweaking. That's what I mean by meditative. I have to kind of tap into my subconscious to a certain degree and just keep trying to move things around until it looks better. I'm going to lighten up this layer a little bit more so the contrast is a little bit more stark. And I think that what will happen is I will discover things about this illustration that I did not know. Like the idea that maybe I need to position the horse so that more of the neck is visible. So I kind of have the, in the sketch, I kind of have the back of the horse, the haunches, overlapping with the mouth of the horse. And I'm looking at this now, and while I'm happy with the angle that I have the horse's head and the neck in the sketch, looking at it in silhouette, I'm starting to realize, well, maybe I need to, whoops, that is too much cutting out there. I might need to move this back some and give a little bit more of the head coming down. Let's see here. Amar says, I'm building an archive of drawings for my comp book just to get ideas for designs on paper and a dedicated sketchbook. You know, I haven't done that, but I've thought of that. I do think that is a good idea. It's just a good idea that I haven't utilized. The idea of saying, all right, whatever project I'm working on, start a new sketchbook, and everything that goes into the world building gets put in that book. All the character designs, the environments, weapons, and just have a sketchbook that's just the world building of that particular comic. So I think that's a really good idea. I'm glad you're doing it. I wish I would do that. I should do that. Maybe you are going to inspire me to do things that I should be doing and haven't been doing. The other thing I need to do is not be so precious with this process of trying to figure out what I want to do. Because I was sitting there and I was like, oh, wait, don't erase this. You know, make sure you keep that shape. I'm like, just get in here and start carving away, see what happens. Maybe that is the better way to go. I mean, first off, just to let you know how I am, how OCD I am about my process, this isn't even the size, the canvas, the screen size I'm using. This is the default iPad screen size. When I work out a silhouette that I like, then my plan is to take the sketch and the silhouette and drop that into a 16 by 20 canvas at 300 DPI, and then redraw the illustration at that higher resolution. So this is just almost like, this is the equivalent of my layout drawings if I were doing a comic, where I'm just going in and moving pieces around. Let's see, 47ness is in the chat. Hey, how you doing? It is going well. And yes, we are doing yet another piece. This one is me. I'm revising an idea that I did before. The idea of, instead of a Medusa, it's a horse with snakes for a mane called Medusa. And it's a piece that I just did as a rough sketch before, that I actually, put online for sale, just an original to sell. And I thought, maybe this one would make a good print. So I am giving that a try. It's very interesting how different this is when I'm trying to construct this drawing from a silhouette. Because one thing is that silhouettes definitely encourage you to do things at more of a 3/4 angle versus a straight on. My rough sketch was not quite straight on. Well, I mean, it's kind of a 3/4, but there's a lot of overlap. "47 is pretty metal." Feeling it. The fact of the matter is, I have enough Medusa-themed concepts, enough sketches, that I could just be the guy who just draws different versions of Medusas. But it's really just something to keep me busy until I'm ready to start the next comic. 47ness, I am curious how far ahead you write your comics. For those who don't know, he's got a great comic called Sally Sprocket and Pistol Pete, or Piston Pete, which you guys can check out. Definitely Google that and check out his great steampunk fantasy Western comic. But for me, I finished drawing Morning Star, and I knew what I wanted my next project to be, but I hadn't started really writing it. And now I'm spending a lot of time just writing and rewriting, and it's taking me a long time to get to the place where I'm ready to want to start it. And I've been telling myself for years that I can't wait until I am done with my current project before writing the next one. So I'm going to instill a new habit of just always writing no matter what. And if I get a project completely written, like an entire graphic novel's worth, then start writing the next project. But I want to make sure that I always have something finished, ready to write, so that when I complete a project, whether it's a one shot or a graphic novel, or even if it's an ongoing series, that I've got something ready to draw when that is finished. So I'm never at the place where I'm at now, where I'm just sort of like treading water while trying to finish the new project. All of a long rambling way to ask how far ahead you write in your comic. Let's see here. And Amar's in the chat. How you doing, man? Yes. Back to Gorgon silhouettes. This one is a horse, which I'm calling Meredusa. I think the big challenge I'm going to have with this is that as this stands right now, the head is way too big for the body that I have there. You know what? Let's duplicate this layer so I can come back to it later. And meanwhile, I'm just going to erase the body completely and see what I can do to kind of create something underneath. Basically, create a neck that works with this composition. And then from there, if all it is just the head and the neck, then that's all I need. I've got some notes there about possible rendering that I can turn off. Let's see here. So 47 says, as far as writing, I tend to outline out the big moments, then break it down into smaller story beats. It says, I wish I wrote it all out before putting sketch to paper, but it's definitely a gradual process. So do you write like a chapter at a time? Do you write it just sort of like page by page as you need to finish each page? Or how far ahead do you get from where you currently are in terms of writing? Yeah, there's some cutting back all the way to just the head and see if I can find a position for a neck that works better in silhouette or will read better. And you know, this is one of those strange things because I feel like if I turn this off, the actual sketch itself, let me just throw a white background on there. I don't want to change the background color. I do want to fill this layer with white. So I do feel like this sketch actually, even though I haven't finished drawing all the heads, on its own, this sketch, I think, does make a compelling composition. And I think that's one of the interesting things that I'm finding challenging about this is that that works, but in silhouette, it's like you're losing too much. There's so much that's overlapping. And I guess it's making me question whether or not it really met. Whoops. Gotta go back and this color is a little bit off-white. Make sure I got the correct color when we were going on here. I guess really I'm exploring the idea of whether I need to work out a strong silhouette for every drawing or not. Because the silhouette is sort of strong, but if I really do this as a full-on silhouette, it doesn't quite read. But maybe that doesn't matter as much as I might have thought in the past. Now, if I am making this neck stick out more, I'm gonna have to move that particular serpent whose head I'm running into right now. Let's see here. So 47 says, I like to have major story moments sketched out before knowing what the dialogue will actually be. Amar says, when I see the number 47, I always think of 47 Ronin or one of the streets I had to visit a lot growing up. Let's see here. 47 says, the previous way I did it, I winged it for the first 3 chapters, then got more serious going forward. But in the future, I like to write it out as like 100-page arc. And yes, it is. Yeah, it says the Amar. It's an aesthetically pleasing number, which I agree. It's a good name. Yeah, you know, it's funny. The way that I am planning to write my new series is as a trilogy of 48-page graphic novellas. Now, the way that I'm seeing that working is I'm planning to write it as single issues that are 2-parters. So imagine 2 24-page comics that make up a 2-part story. And then you get to the end of that story and there's a new chapter, a new arc to take off for the next one. You get 3 of those and it gives you a trilogy that tells sort of a whole complete story at the beginning, middle, and end. And if that's all of that particular story that I tell, then that's fine. And I can move on to other stories. Or to leave it open-ended enough that if I want to come back and revisit that world, I can tell more. And that's mostly just because I do like the idea of telling a finished novel and then moving on. I don't have a character yet that I'm like, oh, I could just do 100 issues of this particular character. I haven't found something that I want to do that much of. So for me, I've been trying to find a way to structure my work. And I'm kind of leaning towards the Hellboy model, where he's got a series of miniseries. So even though in my mind I see it, honestly, a 4-issue series would probably be easier. But the reason why I'm looking at it as 6 is because that way, being able to release it in 3 collected books, even though they're going to be smaller than my normal graphic novels, it'd still be at a size where it'd be a reasonable chunk of story for somebody to get a 48-page one-shot. It's a graphic novella. But I mean, that would basically mean writing out 6 issues at a time, which is not as much as writing out a 100-page graphic novel arc. That is I did that with Eye of the Gods. I wrote the entire thing out before I started. And I mostly did that with Morningstar, but I think I mentioned before that after I got halfway through, I realized that there were a bunch of things that I hadn't properly worked out, and then had to go back and stop in the middle and do some more rewriting. I am gonna duplicate the rough sketch and turn that layer off so I can take these two layers. Yeah, let's go ahead and group them. Move this group on top. No, I don't want to. I think it may. Just make sure it didn't add anything to that. All right. Now, I just want to move this around so it's a little bit more centered because I'm starting to move the serpents away from how they're posed in the rough sketch. And honestly, this whole thing about writing versus drawing, I kind of screwed myself because I knew, even when I was working on the last arc of Morningstar, that I should be writing the next comic. But I think because Morningstar took me so long to finish, like a decade pretty much to get the whole series done, I was so eager to bring the story to a conclusion that I didn't take the time to. I think I was more interested in finishing that than I was getting started on the next thing until it was time to get started on the next thing. But looking back, who knows? It might have been better for me to just take longer to finish Morningstar and have the next book written. Of course, the way my brain works, it's very possible that might mean I'd still be finishing that final issue right now because of how long it takes me to both write and draw. And the fact that I'm constantly revisiting all of my processes. I definitely revise and rethink how I approach the writing process, the drawing process, all of it. I've definitely been taking my writing process and reworking it a lot lately. Now, the challenge that I have here is that I want this to look like a horse's mane and look like a bunch of serpents. I do feel like what I've got going on the left side is working a little bit better now. Now, the question is how to get the serpents on the right side. Now, it could be something as simple as letting it fall off. And by fall off, I mean this serpent that's coming down here, instead of trying to make it solidly connect to the silhouette, it could be something where I just have to go and it kind of disappears. So it's connected, but kind of abstractly connected as opposed to being solidly connected. So you get that sense of the break and the silhouette of the horse. And I think just to force me to think a little bit more instead of just trying to copy, I'm going to knock down the opacity of the sketch underneath. So I can still kind of see it. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but knocking it down enough that I will really be forced to pay attention to what is and isn't working. Like I'll tell you right here with the horse in between the ears is going to be tough. So I don't want to lose the sense of the ears. But I do want to get that sense of, you know, the hair between the ears as well. Maybe I need to just make these ears stubbier. Yeah, on the writing talk, 47 says, agreed, many pies in the oven and all that. I mean, to a certain degree, I understand why there are some artists who don't want to write and all they want to do is just draw, because having to juggle all of these aspects of the story, it is far more challenging. But unfortunately for me, I guess, it's also what I find the most interesting about making comics. Is that unification of art and writing. And I really do, the way I create them, they're so interwoven for me that I don't really like, I haven't really tried drawing many other people's comics, and I have written comics for other people, and I don't think I've necessarily done them as much of a service as they deserved, because I definitely respect someone taking the time to, knowing how long it takes to make a comic, how long it takes to draw it. I don't take lightly having someone draw my stories, but I still don't think that I necessarily service them to the best degree that they deserved. Sort of like I feel like I figured out what works best for me, but I don't know if I've necessarily, like, you look at a lot of, full-time comic book writers, you look at somebody like you know, like a Tom King or a Chris Claremont or Frank Miller or Mark Miller. That's actually who I think I was thinking of. Somebody who knows how to work with a variety of different artists and knows how to tailor the work to fit that artist's strengths. Because I've always mostly been focused on drawing what I write and writing what I draw, I don't know if I've built that muscle up. And I do think that I think that some people might naturally work that way, but I think the people who naturally work that way probably don't necessarily start off drawing, only because as a writer, I could see somebody just looking and saying, ooh, I would love, this story would be perfect for a Walt Simonson type artist, or this story would be perfect for, I don't know, a Mark Silvestri or a Todd McFarlane, and just looking at different artists and seeing in their craft what they would change and how they would structure the script to bring out the best in them. And I think for me, just thinking about how I am going to write a story or how I'm going to draw a story, I don't necessarily come at comics that way. And I feel like I should. If someone's going to take the time to draw something that I write, I feel like it's imperative on me to make it worth their time and respect their talent, their approach, and what they're interested in. And maybe part of that is just leaving the story open and having a dialogue with an artist. Maybe it's less about me trying to write something that's perfect for or tailored to an artist, and more about saying, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and then saying, what do you want? The whole idea of asking your collaborator for input. What do you want to see? What do you like to draw? What do you hate to draw? And then tweaking things to fit them. So maybe it's not necessarily, oh, I've done all this research, or I can envision what exactly needs to be in the script for this artist. Maybe it's just a matter of communication. $47 says, oh, how many one-off drawings I could have gotten done instead. He says, yeah, but that feeling of blending writing with art is special. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I look at it like, I don't know if you watch or listened to the Comic Lab podcast. But it's two of the guys that used to be on Webcomics Weekly, Dave Kellett and Brad Geiger. And they talk about the fact that they really refer to themselves as cartoonists. It's not it's not necessarily about comics or graphic novels. It's about that blending, more sort of like Bill Watterson or Charles Schultz, where it's literally the art and the writing are one. And I think that is sort of how I see my process, even though I'm not doing humorous material. But yeah, that blending, for me, that's where the juice is. So I'm wondering, here's a funny question. Not really a question. It's more of what am I going to do about this? But I'm looking at all of these tiny little tendrils coming out of the top of the horse's head, and I'm wondering to myself, do I want to put little tiny baby snake heads on these small tendrils? And now I've got this snake head. Originally, I have it coming like this and down, and well, you know what? I think that still works. Let's see. I was afraid that was going to break the tendrily feel too much. No, maybe these don't have to be snake heads. Maybe these little tendrils sticking out could be snake tails. But see, now it would get way too easy for me to get lost in drawing all of these little smaller tendrils, and I need to force myself to keep pulling back out and looking at the larger shape. Maybe I need to try and design this so that this point, this rounded form right here, that's the giant nostril of the horse. And I think it bothers me. I realized, hang on, to get rid of that arrow. It bothers me having a serpent going right into that form. So I kind of need to work out how I want the snakes to wrap around that. I don't want a snake to feel like it's coming out of his mouth. I don't want it to feel like it's coming out of his nostril. Let's see here. Byron says, if cartoonist was good enough for Jack Kirby, it's good enough for me. You know, I just started reading, my wife had got me a copy of the Jack Kirby Mr. Miracle Artist Edition from IDW. She got me that for my birthday. I hadn't had a chance to crack it open yet. I just started looking at it last night, and man, it is lovely. I mean, there's a reason why he's called Decay Comics. It's fantastic. Mm. Yeah, 47 is says not even writing, but the sequential process. This is a very Scott McCloud way of looking at it, and and he's also in favor of baby snakes for the little heads, the little tendrils that are coming off. And he said, yeah, there's some species of snake that are very tendril like. I think for me, it's a balance of. I'll tell you the reason why it occurred to me to work out the silhouette is because of how much the rough sketch has stuff going all over the place. I think that if it didn't have all of these, I probably would just have continued sketching this out and having all of the places where there's overlap, and I wouldn't have even really thought twice about it, and it probably would have been fine. It would have been a perfectly fine illustration. But when I see things that are complex and that you can possibly lose the sense of the shape, that's where it occurred to me that it might, that if I can make this read, as complex as it is, if you can look at this and even in silhouette form say, it's a horse with a bunch of snakes for a mane, that's, in fact, I might even call this Medusa. I may call it snakes for a mane instead of snakes on a plane. Maybe snakes on a mane. I don't know. Maybe just snake mane. But my point being is that with the rough outline and stuff all over the place, you might not be able to tell what the hell this drawing is. And if I can get it to read in silhouette form, then no matter what I draw on top, in fact, to be honest, it frees me up and so that I can draw much looser inside of that silhouette. Because it's going to read it's going to read as a bunch of snakes. But that process of getting it to read, the refinement, that's the hard work, and that's what you guys are getting the pleasure of watching me do right now, is the hard work of refining a silhouette. And I absolutely would not use this process. Well, I think that strong silhouettes are very, very important. In fact, I think they're just as important in comics as they are in standalone illustrations. I think because you're drawing so many pictures per comic page and per issue, working out a silhouette this detailed is kind of a no-go in terms of the speed you need to make comic illustrations. What I really tend to do is, for those who've watched videos of me doing my thumbnails, that's really me working out the silhouette, is my thumbnail stage. So I still am doing this, but I'm doing it to a much looser degree, and I'm not spending as much time on it. You know, 47 is, it's funny when you mentioned how many one-off illustrations you could do in the time it takes to finish a comic. That is also one of the things I've considered, is that my sales of individual comics, pre-pandemic, my sales were kind of dropping. And I thought to myself, maybe the route here, because I see so many artists that are just doing prints, and true, they're doing fan art, which, you know, there's an audience for fan art. But the idea of doing standalone images and making a career of doing that, and then still publishing comics, but making the comic book publishing be something that I'm doing for me. That's like making, my thought is, what if I could make standalone illustration and build enough of an audience of my work that I could just do that to pay the bills. And then the comic books are both supplemental income and passion project. If it's something that makes a ton of money, that's fantastic. If it ends up just being something that only a small number of people do and it kind of like makes its own money back, but may not be a profit, but doesn't lose money in terms of the time I'm doing it, I could be okay with that if I were just doing illustrations and then doing comics when I had time and could fit it in. So in a way, that's kind of how it is right now, in the sense that my work, most of my income comes from my day job, not from comics. But I mean, if I were able to produce like one print and one T-shirt design every month, and that T-shirt design was able to sell enough to be like a month's worth of income, and then I could still take all of that work and the process images that I put into it and put that into, say, an art book every year. That's not necessarily the worst business model. I mean, I'm no Kim Jong-il, but he's got a little, he not little. He's got those thick art books that he puts out, not every year, but every couple of years. There's another Kim Jong-il art book. Let's see here. Johnny's in the chat, says, dude, I had a nightmare about you. Well, I apologize for haunting your dreams. I have formally apologized. I do not mean to bring fear and terror into people's dreams. 47 is also down with snakes on a mane. Trademark it. Like that. Johnny says, you had a slight affair with him, Medusa. How does that happen, man? It's like, I don't know. That's your subconscious. I mean, I am drawing Medusas right now, so obviously I've got an obsession. But you got to work out what's going on in your dreams. I can't tell you about that. I'm gonna make this tiny little snake. I'm trying to figure out how to draw a tiny little head and look like it's hissing. But I also don't want to just twin or duplicate the snake over here that's hissing. I've got to find like different mouth positions. I'm gonna have to get more reference for all of the different snake mouths. Now I'm gonna use a cheat here because I'm saying that I'm working in silhouette, but what I'm doing is I am drawing the top of the mouth and the fangs, and I'm leaving the inside of the snake's mouth non-existent. So I'm not drawing. Normally, this would be filled up if I were doing a true silhouette, but I'm going to cheat the silhouette and just have little fangs right there. So it's giving you the effect that I want by doing basically a lost edge where I'm leaving out what would be behind this. Johnny says, that's what I get for eating sugar before bed. He says, otherwise, hope you're doing well. And I am. This is this is a challenging process, working out all of these different snake heads. And I really am going to have to get some more reference in order to do this properly. Let's see, which way do I want this head facing? I mean, a big challenge for this is facing the snake heads in different ways. What I mean is I can have one head looking downward like this, another head looking almost straight on, a little bit of side, another head looking up, an extreme angle underneath the head. I mean, looking at basically the underneath of the head. There's a whole lot of variety in here, and I need to take advantage of that. Not just take advantage of it, I mean, I need to be intentional about all of these different directions and angles. See here. 47 says one major piece a month might be nice, so that might be too few updates to keep people hooked. You're very, very true. I mean, there's a reason why most of what I'm posting on Instagram is work in progress and not finished work. It's because work in progress is all I have. I get very little artwork done over the course of a month. I get very little artwork done over the course of a year. So all I'm showing on social media, I feel almost like the finished pieces that I have to sell are kind of like the support, but what the content I'm producing is my creative process. I feel like the content, if you look at social media in the sense of what is it you're sharing, it's not that I'm sharing dope finished pieces the way people on ArtStation do. It's that I'm sharing how I make stuff. So most of what I'm sharing is stuff that looks ugly and it's unfinished, but I'm showing how I craft that. And that might not necessarily be the best route. I can't tell you that I recommend that. I think honestly, I think the best way to build your following is to share completed work that's really, really cool. But I don't produce enough of that. Everything I do is tons of sketches and process and what we're doing here right now, you know, us sitting and talking while I'm working out these silhouettes. Speaking of which, Johnny says the silhouette, he says, looks awesome, but they're incredibly difficult. Yes, they are incredibly difficult. I mean, that's the whole thing. I started with a sketch that I've still got the sketch underneath here. I started with a sketch that I thought was very cool. And then I realized, I wonder how this would read as a silhouette. And as soon as I asked that question, I realized that I actually had a mess on my hands. And now I'm trying to clean up my mess. And I feel like it's better to figure out where things are going to go wrong with a piece and fix them at the sketch stage and silhouette stage. Like this, fixing this now is tedious, but this is way easier than me getting a finished drawing, like going ahead and doing penciling and inking digitally and adding color, and then be like, oh, well, this isn't right or that isn't right, and trying to move stuff around and switch pieces and just not being able to figure out what's wrong with the drawing. What's wrong is that I never fixed the basic underlying structure of the drawing. So in a sense, me sitting here and doing this tedious process now and forcing you guys to sit through it with me, this is what I've learned after hundreds of pages of comics and tons of standalone illustrations and pieces, is that if you don't fix a drawing early, you're going to have to fix it later. That's what I've learned. So one is having the skill or having at least the wherewithal to look at your drawing and assess whether it's broken or not. And part of that is doing stuff like flipping your canvas and being able to look at it from different from different angles and seeing, does this still work? Does the perspective still work? Does this still make sense? Part of it is flipping your canvas. Part of it's looking at your drawings in silhouette. Part of it's looking at it in black and white and seeing if your values read. In fact, that's going to be my top 3 tips for fixing your drawing. And I think People are going to be pissed because I'm going to name the video this and then say that the tips aren't going to be until the very end. But I can timestamp this because we're just at the hour mark where I'm saying this. But this, if you wanted one thing that's going to be actually useful in this video, it's going to be what I'm about to write down now for you guys, which is top 3 tips for fixing your art. 1, flip your drawing. I'm going to put it in here, parentheses, reverse/mirror. And you can do this traditionally as well as digitally. You can look at it in a mirror. You can put it on a light box and flip it upside down. You can take a photo of it and then flip the photo. 2, look at it in silhouette. And 3, check your values and contrast. So whether you're working in comics, whether you're doing digital drawing, digital painting, whether you're working in full color, these are my top 3 tips for fixing your artwork. You can use this if you've got anything you're making and you're like, it's not right, but I don't know why. Try all 3 of these things. And I promise you, you will see at least one mistake at each of these. You'll find at least one thing that when you look at it in the mirror, like when you flip the canvas, you look and go like, oh wait, the eyes don't line up, or the ears aren't on the same axis as the skull, or you'll see something proportionally like one leg is longer than the other. You'll see at least one mistake when you look at that. When you look at it in silhouette, you'll see, oh, I can't tell what this form is doing. It looks fine in sketch, but I realize the way that the arms are overlapping, you can't tell what the body's doing. You might have to change the pose. So it's not necessarily that it's structurally wrong. It's more that even though it's structurally correct, it doesn't read. Because like a lot of stuff like, Jack Kirby, he's great with like the foreshortened, the hands coming out at you, but he'll pose it so that all of the elements, one leads into the next. If they all kind of pile up on each other, you might not be able to tell what that figure's doing. So you may have to change your pose completely just so that it reads. Or 3, checking your values and contrast. Now that tends to be more about painting, but it's true in drawing too. You may do something where you look at a drawing and you'll realize that the balance of black and white is off. Like it's too much just black and not enough white, too much white, not enough black. You may do it where the figure is 50-50 in terms of how much dark and light there is. And it's not that it's wrong, it's just boring. And you need to play with that. And when I say checking your values and contrast, it also means, hell, you may need to make something almost silhouette. You might need more black. It's not goes far enough to black. But the idea is that you may have a character who's wearing a belt, and you may just realize, oh, this character reads better if instead of having just a line drawing of a belt, if I make that belt a silhouette. So it goes from like light pants to dark belt, and then you might say, oh, then instead of going back to a white shirt, it might be like it goes from black, from dark to from white pants to black belt to gray shirt. The point is, you may just realize, oh, if I change up the contrast, and when I say gray, it might not necessarily be doing gray tones. It might be like, oh, I need to put hatching in here, but you may need to vary up the levels of contrast that you have in there, or you might have too much variation. You need to simplify it and make it predominantly one value with an accent of either white or gray. You know, any combination of the two or three. But point is that this is, for me, learning how to. We spend years asking teachers and asking instructors and actually other people online, how do I get better? The most important thing you can do is teach yourself how to diagnose your own work. That's one of the things I've learned from Carl Ganass. I've learned a lot from him. But if I've learned nothing else, it is how to diagnose your own work. Now, my success at executing those improvements, that's on me, and that's not where I would like it to be. But one of the main things that he teaches as an instructor is how to look at your own work in a productive, critical manner. It's not just saying, oh, this sucks, I hate my work, I suck. It's looking at your work and saying, what's wrong, how can I fix it? And that's probably one of the biggest gifts that man has ever given me. Anyways, now with that rant over, and at least I've given you one productive thing in this video, I'm going to work on the silhouette for a little bit longer. Since I went on that rant, I'll work on the silhouette for maybe another 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. But if you guys have any other stuff that you want to talk about before we get to the end here, then let me know. So we'll go for another 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap it. Now I'm scrolling back up before I went on the rant. Johnny's like, thanks again for sending me those links to the graphic design courses for low or free. He says, I really appreciate it. Yeah, graphic design. We were talking about how hard it is to make a living as an artist. And, you know, I'd point out to Johnny that honestly, most of my income comes from graphic design, not from illustration. Pardon me, gotta blow my nose. So I sent him some links to, I think Coursera has a bunch of free graphic design programs. There's other places. I think Khan Academy might have some stuff on graphic design. But just places to look at ways to make more of an income as a creative without killing yourself, because it's so hard to make a living as an artist. 47ness mentions, I like the idea of doing an Inktober run and then spending way more time to clean up the pieces for an art book. Says ugly in a good way. Yeah, I think honestly, that's really, I think one of the best things that has come out of Inktober is, while I have never actually participated in Inktober, I do agree that it is a really good excuse to buckle down and produce a finished piece every day, even if it's not a perfect piece. And, you know, and I definitely don't care whether, I'm not one of those people who thinks that Inktober means it has to be drawn in ink. I think that digital pieces that are black and white, if they're digital drawings that have an ink-like appearance, anything that's done in the spirit of Inktober, I think definitely counts. But yeah, being able to do that, and I've seen lots of people that would take their pieces and just collect them. Hell, I should really probably just do a drawing a day for a month and then just collect it into like a 30-page art book, and then just do that every day of the year. Just, you know, have a big book of drawings every year that I put out. I think you could honestly make a career and a living just doing that. If you produce enough of it and get better, there will be an audience for the work that you do. If it's compelling, it might not start off as a huge audience. And I think that that's the big problem people have, is they start doing stuff and they don't get traction after a year or 2 years and say, well, I can't make a living at this, and they give up. I think sometimes it takes a decade or more to get traction. I still don't have traction on my work. I mean, I still sell a few graphic novels online every month, but it's not like the audience that I would hope that I have. But the question is, am I going to stop doing it just because the audience isn't there? Am I going to stop doing it because AI is eating up everybody's lunch? I making money from it is a necessity to allow me to keep doing it. But it's the act, the creative process that I actually enjoy the most. It's like some people say, I hate writing, but I love having written. I don't hate drawing. The making the drawings, the act of drawing it, I get way more satisfaction from drawing than I do from having a finished drawing. The finished drawing itself, most of mine are not that great. I mean, hell, I've got some more Medusa pieces. I have a sketch right here above. I'll flip back real quick to the big screen. Even more Medusa sketches that I have just hanging on a board above my drawing table, just more thumbnails for other ideas that I have that I haven't gotten around to drawing. And they're just hanging up there. You know, I just love making these things. I love just sketching them out, coming up with ideas and seeing where they go. Let's see here. Johnny says, taking notes. Professor Jeremy in the school. Let's see here. Amar says, yeah, I don't really like flipping because you could not do this traditionally as easy. So the best thing is to find your optimal drawing position. They said this will minimize errors and improve your ability to see things the way you need to. He says, but I'm stubborn. It's like rotating. I don't like rotating pages as well. And he said the other two I can concur with. Well, I will tell you, I've mentioned before, not Carl Ganas, but my good friend Carl Altstetter, fellow comic creator. He hounded me. I'm not going to say he reminded or encouraged. He hounded. He's like, Jeremy, flip your pages. Jeremy, start flipping your pages. Jeremy, why aren't you flipping your pages? Like, he would not let up. But he's an experienced comic creator. I was lucky to have a friend who didn't give up on me, and was constantly giving me feedback. And one of the biggest tips he had was to flip your pages. And once I started doing it, I could see the growth. So it's not fun to flip your pages. It's not fun to have a sketch that you really do think is a cool sketch, and then all of a sudden you look at it and see so many mistakes that you didn't know were there. But once you get over that, it very much is like the Pulp Fiction Marcellus Wallace thing. That's just pride fucking with you. I flip my stuff and I realize every time I flip it, that's me seeing more things. Flipping it is literally making me a better artist because I'm seeing mistakes, and it's instead of just saying, oh, well, this piece came out however it came out, I have the chance to fix them. I have the chance to make a piece that really goes above and beyond. I mean, I don't know how many people really, it seems like there tends to be two schools. People who are just enjoy whatever they make and don't really care what anyone thinks, or people who just beat themselves over the head saying, I'm horrible, I suck. And for me, I'm critical, but I'm only critical to the degree that it helps me improve as an artist. I do genuinely want to get better. And I don't think that most of what I make is that great. But flipping my drawings allows me to transform them. It allows me to make something better than it started out, better than I was going to make. And the thing about looking at not being able to do it in a traditional media, well, that's the reason why I think you guys have seen, I did tons of videos when I was drawing my thumbnails on layout paper. Layout bond, the beauty of it is that it's just a thick tracing paper. That's all layout paper is. It's thick tracing paper. And the beauty of it is that it's as durable as normal copy paper that you would just get out of your copier. But so you can draw on it, you can erase on it. It's durable paper. In fact, in some ways, it's more durable than regular paper. However, it's almost as transparent as tracing paper. Slightly more opaque, but that opaqueness helps because you can kind of see the difference between what you draw on one side and the other. And by doing rough sketches on that, it allowed me to take any drawing that I was working on and rework it, come back, look at it. It allowed me to flip my drawings at the rough layout stage. Other people find that, here's the thing. If you're doing paintings, then it's a little bit more complicated. You have to set up a mirror somewhere so you can look at them in a mirror or take a photograph of them. But when it comes to drawings, what I try to do is I try to do all of my fixes at the drawing stage so that when I move on to the painting, I'm not really worried about flipping the painting. But even if you are doing like a large painting, like I said, you can always just take a photograph with your phone and flip that photograph and look at it. So there's definitely ways to, what I'm saying is, Amar, I was as stubborn as you are. Try flipping your drawings more. Just give it a shot. Maybe take like a couple, say for your next 5 pieces, flip them in the rough sketch stage, try to fix the problems that you see, and then flip it back. And maybe do that for like the next 5 pieces and see if you don't see a noticeable rise in quality. And the reason why I say that is because once you see how much it improves your work, then you have a choice. You don't have to flip your drawings. There's no law that says if you're an artist making art, you got to flip your drawings. We all have different processes. We can all do what we want. But I'm throwing this down as a challenge. If you see how much better your work is by flipping the drawings and you choose not to do it, then it means you're intentionally choosing not to make art as good as you could. And if you're okay with that choice, God bless, go forward and make the art you want to make. But know that you have the tools to make better art than you're currently making and that you're choosing not to use them. Just, you got to acknowledge that. You've got a tool right there that you can do to kick your artwork up. And if you don't use it, that's your choice. But know that it's there. All right, let me scroll down. Byron says, I feel like that's unnecessarily holding yourself back. He says, but that's ultimately up to you. I don't know if he's agreeing with what I just said. About the rotating pages. Oh, I'm gonna have to, okay, here we go. Just want to make sure I'm not getting lost in the old comments. Let's see here. Amar says, you also looked at the drawing zoomed out and stepping back from an illustration. You know what? That's right. I need to put that in there as a bonus. Zoom out. Because this thing seems to read at this stage. If you can get something to read like this, and honestly, when I'm really trying to work stuff out, I'm looking at the screen that you guys are seeing because I want to make sure I don't make it too small. But a lot of times I will thumbnail and I'll look at stuff tiny. Because if something reads, the fact of the matter is, when you look at this, as tiny as this is, you can still tell that when you look at my reference images next to me, you can still tell that, well, the middle statue might be hard to read, but the bottom one and the top one, you can still kind of tell that it's a horse. I mean, the top one, it could be a dog. You can't tell. That's too small because it's full size. But that bottom image, that still reads as a horse. And that's the goal that I'm trying to do, is not necessarily to have mine, because it's got the extra clutter of the serpents. But my idea is that when you're looking at something super small, I still want you to be able to look at the silhouette and say, oh, it's a person's head. Oh, this is a car. Oh, it's a jet plane. This is a castle. I want you to be able to look at the basic silhouette and be able to read what it is. Because if you can get over that hump of just not having someone say, huh, like if you can just eliminate that person trying to figure out what the hell your drawing is, then that's half of the battle of making art. You've already made the main communication. So I definitely I definitely agree. I'm gonna go back to my list of tips, and I am going to turn that off. bonus. Zoom out. I see Corey Kerr is in the chat. Hey Corey, how you doing? Towards the end of this live stream, I got on a rant about my top 3 tips for fixing your art, and these are I'll put a number 4 there. These are the things that I've been doing over the course of this illustration, and I was just saying, anytime that you're having a piece that something's wrong, these are like my 4 go-to fixes for analyzing your own work and figuring out how to get it back on track. Let's see here. So Amar, thank you so much for contributing to zooming out. That's a very, very important one. It's one that I use and I forgot to put on the list. So props, man. Thanks for throwing that in there. Let's see here. Amar says to Byron, that's a habit I've been doing for a long time, so it's been helpful for me because I'm able to see if things are off a lot easier. He says, if I was new to illustration or drawing when I first started, I would flip the drawing more. I mean, like I said, I had been drawing for many, many years before I got into the habit of flipping my artwork, and it was my buddy Carl had to hammer on me to get me to start doing it. But now that I've seen the power of the flip, I can't. It's like the Matrix. I can't unsee it. Let's see here. Amar also says, speaking of graphic design, how many people remember keyline and paste up? You know what's funny is I came into graphic design after that era. Like I basically came into it. Let's see. Yeah, Corey also mentions that there's a lot of graphic design work out there. I came into graphic design just after the end of physical paste ups. Like I remember when I was in college, I worked at the school newspaper, and a lot of the designers were just starting to use Quark Express to actually lay out the school newspaper instead of doing physical paste ups. And that was before I got into graphic design. I came into the newspaper as an illustrator, so I just would do spot illustrations and editorial illustrations for articles. But that was my first time using Photoshop, which at the time I think was like Photoshop 3, not CS3, Photoshop 3. So this was back in the 90s that I first started using Photoshop. And hell, it might have even been, I don't know if Illustrator existed. I think it must have existed. I certainly didn't try using it at all because, as we all know, Illustrator is not the most intuitive program. And I definitely was not really into it at the time. But anyway, yeah. So the whole keyline and paste up, I came into graphic design just after that, as that was getting phased out. So I feel like I actually got lucky in terms of the time that I came in. See, Amar says, I do my own version of Inktober, and he said I stopped doing them in 2019, and he said at least under the banner of Inktober. I get that, but it's good that you do your own version. The 47 it says, yeah, the idea of just the idea of a month-long challenge. And he said not necessarily ink. Well, you know what? I mean, there's lots of people that come up with their own challenges, and then there's Mermaid. Or Mermay, where people do mermaids in May. There's Smaugust for people that want to do dragons, like Smaug from The Hobbit. And Byron says, I prefer far more sketching than I do finishing. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, one of the things I want to do for my next book is I want to try and limit the finishes to just the faces, the features, and the hands. And the rest of it, I want it to look more like my thumbnail sketches and try to build a style that's faster, looser, more spontaneous. Let's see here. And Corey says, I created the sticker stint, 30 sticker designs in 30 days. Super fun, lots of good stuff. See, that's a great thing right there because you're making something, it gives you a reason to sit down, make focused artwork every day, and you've got a product at the end, multiple products. I mean, you can sell it as one big sticker pack. You can sell them individually. You can break them up into smaller packs. I always agree that that's one of the best things. I think I can't remember who, multiple people have told me the idea of make something once, sell it multiple times. That's great wisdom I've heard from other artists more talented than I am. I think, Corey, I've heard you guys mention that on the Artcasters multiple times. I've heard lots of other artists say it, so I'm just passing it on. I'm just passing on wisdom I've heard from others. And yeah, 47ist says those are nice. Yeah, the sticker stint. Let's see here. Yeah, Amar says, I've done quite a few of those challenges. Sculptober, Sculpt January, Inktober, 1,000 hands, 500 heads. He says they're fun, but they can be exhausting. He said the 11-second animate club for animation. And Corey says, hands and heads, I've got to do that. I mean, I need to do that. I definitely, I think that all of these things that get you doing creative work on the daily basis and getting you into that habit, anything that builds strong creative habits, I think is a good exercise. The main reason why I haven't really participated in a lot of challenges in the past is mostly because I've always had a specific graphic novel or comic project that I'm working on pretty much since the era of social media. Since I first got online sharing work, I've always had the comic I'm working on, the graphic novel that I'm working on. And I'm like, that for me is the challenge. So I haven't really put a lot of other challenges on my plate just because I'm trying to crank out the thing. But I do agree with the strength of what they add to your creative life. And Amar says that you have to admit that also feeds into your perfectionism as part of your personality as well. You know what? Touche. Touche. I'm a perfectionist. It slows me down because I spend a lot of time trying to tinker and make things just right instead of letting them go. So touche. You know what, Amar? That's a good point. You can't let me off the hook for that. I don't think that perfectionism is a great thing either. You can't let things get you to the point where you're paralyzed and never finish anything because you're trying to tweak it all. But I think for me, it's I'm trying to find a place. I'm trying to find a healthy balance between always trying to make better work versus not caring at all and just getting the work out just to get it out. I think that there's a middle ground and between perfectionism and not caring. And I'm trying to, honestly, I definitely lean far more towards perfectionism. And I think, honestly, I'm more of a perfectionist when doing my standalone illustrations than I am when it comes to comics. Because on my comics, I will say on every single panel. So if you've got 6 panels on a page, in every single panel, there's something I'm like, oh well, I chose to let something go that wasn't right. So that's 6 mistakes per page, and that's minimum. Every single page I've ever drawn, there's at least 6 different things you can count. You can count one thing per panel that's wrong, or something that I said this isn't right, but I'm choosing to let this go. So I acknowledge that I'm a perfectionist. But I do, in my defense, say that I'm less perfectionist when I'm doing sequential artwork versus standalones. With these, the whole point is to make a single visual statement. And in that attempt for a single visual statement, I really am trying to make it as good as possible, as strong as possible. So I am definitely more of a perfectionist when it comes to that. Let's see here. 47ist gives it the thumbs up. And Amar says, zooming out comes from my own graphic design days. And he says, I tend to sketch lightly and position myself so I can see errors. He says, not to be arrogant, but I can see the errors. And he says, I have flipped my drawings before, and typically the errors comes from when my posture is bad. He says, or when I have the tablet tilted in a position that's not optimal for how I see. He says, I remember Photoshop 3. He says, yeah, I used to use Illustrator 1 back in 91 or 92. And King's Low Fitness is coming in. It says, sketching is the ish, Byron. And it's like, and you know what? I will co-sign on that. It says, Amar says, I remember when none of the Apple products were on PC and all the screens were 8-bit black and white CRT screens. The Toaster Max. I remember the Toaster Max when I was in high school. I actually took a CAD drawing class for architecture. Um, that was challenging. I almost was an architecture major in college, but I realized by taking architecture in high school that it was just a little too rigid for me, and that I don't think I would have enjoyed it. So graphic design ended up being a much happier middle ground. It says, "Man, it is crazy." Yeah, it is. How much the technology has come along. It says all the old PCs were in DOS with the black and green screens, and the Mac were black and white, and that was cutting edge. It says now AI and people were Lear computers back in the 80s and 90s. King's Little Fitness says I gotta practice those challenges. And Amar says I have to relearn everything since keyline paste up when left after graduating in '92. And he says now with AI, people are complaining about coming to terms with them. Let's see here. Kingslow Fitness says I just got 3 giant canvases. 3 giant canvases. Damn, that's dope. I don't do enough traditional canvas painting. The last one I did was when you saw me working through that big painting for my wife, which I'm pleased with how that came out. But yeah, I miss working on traditional canvas. I've got a bunch of acrylic studies that I painted for that canvas painting on my wall here as a reminder not to forget to go back to traditional painting. And then Byron says you have to be more lenient with comics, otherwise you'll drive yourself insane for every 2-inch panel. That's very true. As much of a perfectionist as I'd like to be, yeah, you can't win every single battle on the comic page. Let's see here. Amar says most people bothered by AI are people that are not professional or confident enough themselves as artists to know AI. To know all AI is just a tool. Well, I think that a lot of people, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the way I look at it is that maybe it does take jobs away from artists, but I don't know. It's here. It's a genie. It's not going back in the bottle. All I can do is just keep making the things I want to make. Maybe it will change my process in some way. Who knows? Maybe AI. It'd be interesting to have AI make interesting silhouettes. That would be something I think maybe I might play with AI is to try making silhouettes of black and white silhouettes of different things and just asking it and making experiments, seeing how they look. So let's see here. Kingslow Fitness says, I just got 3 giant canvases now. Thoughts on thumbnail sketching and inking as well? Well, I'll tell you that one of the things the mistake I made when I was doing working on the painting that I did is I did thumbnails, but I didn't do I did thumbnails in pencil and I digitally colored them. What I should have done was do thumbnails in acrylic, which if I grab, let me grab this one. Hang on. I have this on my wall, and I keep this here as a reminder for the next time I do a traditional painting. So the big tip I'll tell you for doing, if you're going to be doing canvas work, is whatever paint you're going to use. If you're going to use oil or acrylic or watercolor, whatever you're going to do thumbnails, and you can do them on paper, but do thumbnails with the medium you're going to be using. So if you're going to do it in acrylics, then do acrylic thumbnails. If you're going to do it in oil, do oil thumbnails. And also make notes. Like what I did was I made little notes along here of the mixes of colors, like how many parts of like burnt umber versus yellow ochre that I used. And so I worked out what my basic color palettes were going to be. And I made notes, like I just made little dabs of it and then wrote underneath it what this is, like 2 parts burnt umber, 1 part yellow ochre, 2 parts burnt sienna, 1 part burnt umber, just working all of those things out. That is my biggest tip, is make some, like go ahead and do thumbnails in pencil first, but do some thumbnails with the paints that you're going to be painting on that canvas with. Do thumbnails on the side in value studies, maybe do them just black and white, then maybe do some with colors and work those out, because when you go to actually paint the thing on canvas, you'll be like, oh, wow, you'll be glad that you worked it out beforehand on paper. So thumbnails aren't just for pencil and pen and ink. They're also for doing them in paint. All right. I'm going to just race through the last couple of comments here because we're going super long, and I do need to wrap this up. Amar says, by the way, how did the wife like the painting? She loved it. She said it was worth 7 years to wait for. Just so you guys know, it was a wedding present for my wife, and it took me 7 years to finish it. So she loved it. She's super patient. The main reason she didn't push me, because she doesn't push me anyway. She's super patient, but it was the fact that she knew I really wanted to finish Morningstar. And she was like, take as much time as you need, finish your comic, that's your focus. And that's where a lot of the time also between finishing Morningstar and now has gone, was getting that painting done. And that was like, because I had to reteach myself how to paint. And that was a whole process unto itself. And that's the reason why I've got these thumbnails here as a reminder for the next painting, because I know I'm not going to get back to traditional painting for a while, but I won't be starting from scratch. Those images that I have on my wall are basically the notes that I took on me reteaching myself how to paint. So Kingslow Fitness says, I may go over to it as a next level, so from sketching to ink to paint non-digital. 47 says, in terms of AI, it's going to make the pipeline more grueling. Byron says, I think at most only people it will affect is studio artists, particularly concept artists. But even then, concept artists are already using a bunch of photo bashing and whatnot. I think that probably the people that were worried about it taking their jobs are probably the people who are going to be. I think that you're just going to have concept artists. I think that's what the feminist was saying about the pipeline becoming more grueling, is that the people who are already creating existing concept artists are just going to be generating more concepts faster with AI as a base, and then putting more stuff on top of it. So I think in the same way that we see AI cranking out a lot more artwork, who knows, you might need more artists. Now wrap your brain around this, because this is me talking out of my ass. This is not informed. I've never worked as a concept artist. So I may be completely ill-informed about this. But in the end, someone still needs to go through, someone both needs to plug in all of the prompts for different things that are developed, and then someone needs to go through and refine and revise those prompts, and then based on that, it probably needs some sort of correction or editing on top of it. What might happen is, if anything, AI might employ more artists, because if you're generating so many rough prompts, it's like having 1,000 concept artists working for you, but someone needs to go through and select from which ones are good and bad, and someone needs to then on top of those do renders to correct them, to tweak them, to do the things that even if you keep tweaking the prompts and keep getting it, it's still not right. You still need a human eye to come in there and make it whatever the studio is asking for. So that is where I see maybe possibly you might need more artists to go in and correct the work that the AI is putting out, as opposed to fewer artists actually creating it. So it might just be the same number of artists are still employed. It's just that their work may shift from sketching from scratch to photo bashing on top of AI renders. It may be the same amount of work. Who knows? There may be so many concepts that are generated that you might need more artists, because the art directors are overwhelmed. They just got this massive pool of AI images, and they may not have time to go through all of them. It might mean that more artists might be elevated from concept artists to art director. It might be that we might need a larger pool of art directors. Who knows? I don't know. Again, uninformed opinion, throwing it out there as a possibility. Let's see what happens. All right. And Byron says, AI at least isn't going to be hurting cartoonists anytime soon, at the very least. Yeah, I've definitely heard that that it's not great with black and white line art. 47ist says, just need to be more wary of finding employers who don't assume artists can just push a button and a finished piece comes out. Who knows? It may be that more artists just won't have Mid-Journey accounts the same way that people have subscriptions to Adobe. And then you press the button and then you just send them the AI concept, and then they pick which one they want you to revise, and you still revise on top of that. Who knows? Yeah, I think that more and more people it does do a disservice in the fact that people think that, well, it used to be that you think you just press artists do nothing but press a button. I don't know how it's going to affect things going forward. But let's see, Amar says, because the time spent on research for world building and concepting is huge. 47 says, at least a human artist can do revisions as needed by the client. I don't know how it works with AI, with Midjourney. If you have a generated image and you re-upload it and ask for changes to that generated image, I actually haven't played with it enough. And it's not because I'm anti-AI. It's that I would rather spend time working on silhouettes than I would plugging prompts into a program. But I should play with it at some point, because I'm not anti-AI. It's just not a priority for right now. I'm not anti-AI. I'm not pro-AI. Like you guys have said, to me, it's just a tool to be used for better or worse. I just haven't had time to dig into playing with the tool. Byron says, you still need to have people who want you still have people who want a physical product. Someone wants actual paint on canvas, so print isn't going to cut it. I mean, that gets into the argument about digital art versus traditional. Like, a lot of digital artists, people for a long time didn't want digital art in galleries because they said, well, it's not paint on canvas. Could also be something where you, much like at conventions, people will get remarks for Magic the Gathering cards or remarks on comic book covers. Could be that you might have something that's digitally based, printed out on canvas, and then you paint on top of that. There's a lot of different ways to go. Let's see. Amar says, well, for productivity, redoing a painting, even photo bashing, is very time consuming. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. The AI, what it really seems to excel at is that time of doing all of that work in a rapid pace of time, doing the iteration, and then letting the artist come in and refine from there. Kingslow Fitness says, color palette thumbnail combination, thanks. He says, acrylic is the paint. That's the medium I work in. I find it's, I just don't necessarily want to deal with the fumes of oil and the ventilation needs. Amar says, I prefer to use AI to get me to the comp stage, and all I have to do is the final. I think that's exactly how I would go about it. When I do get around to dabbling with it, I think that's what I will be will be getting into. Let's see here. Amar says, that way the customer can get what they want without me constantly billing them for more time spent repainting, photo bashing. He says you can bill in the time it takes to do roughs and comps, where the bill rate will be more competitive versus a ton more billable hours. And he says that's the same with digital photography and digital filmmaking. And Kingslow Fitness says Photoshop versus editing on TikTok and other social media. So I heard from a Photoshop freelancer who put in years that he's getting less business. He's focusing his brand via marketing. I think that's true for a lot of artists. He says his name is Talented Weirdo. I'll take a look and check his work out. Amar says you can take a ton more footage and photos where you have to spend more time to choose what photos work or shots for their film project. He says, I remember back in the 90s when we talked about customers wanting one button to do graphic design. And he says, well, we've been there for a while now. You can upload your own images. You can do modifications. He says, I've played with it and watched videos on it as well. And yeah, I've been posting some videos on AI in the Discord. Some of the stuff I've seen, a guy creating a whole graphic novel that's both written and drawn with the AI. This is AI versus Kingslow Fitness is AI versus brainstorming, writing script, drawing. This is your practice as an artist. And yeah, I didn't know this. This is Amar says you can even upload your own images, so you can have it create create images based on your own style. I think that's the other thing with AI is people are concerned about um, it being the engine being taught based on all of the artwork that's out there on the internet that's been fed, and if you're having it basing renders on other people's style, like how much of that is really copyright infringement? If you're telling it to photo bash based on like a Craig Mullins digital painting style or a Ian McCaig penciled sketch style. Let's see here. Byron says, in all honesty, I think we're always going to have people that appreciate human-made art, so I don't think it's going to phase people out. I agree. And Amar says, saying that is true for some people won't buy digital art. They will buy hand-painted art. And Byron says, ultimately, it's about finding your market audience. Yes. And Amar says, ditto. That is true for everything. It all boils down to your audience and what they will buy. And at that point, we are caught up with the comments. This was a rapid race to catch up with everything. You guys were spitting a lot of interesting topics there, and I was just trying to race to catch up. All right, done. Okay, Byron says the copyright issue is the real problem. Only the true issue is how the AI works. Yeah, we'll have to see how that works out. That is something that I don't think has been litigated yet. I don't think anyone has sued someone for an AI for using their content. I don't think any AIs have sued people for using AI in a way that it wasn't licensed. All of that, we'll have to see how it comes. But that is a conversation for another day. All right, guys. So again, this one was a rousing one, and I feel like I made a lot of progress with the silhouettes. It'll be interesting to see how it goes developing this. But again, I have mentioned if you guys would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, this month, next week, this coming Tuesday, we've got our next session of Art Book Study Group. That's a Patreon exclusive live stream. Normally we dig into the best art books around, try to suck all the knowledge we can out. This time I'm going to be doing sort of a figure drawing session. We're going to be doing it just through the Discord server. So it's going to be a little different from the way we've done it in the past. I'll post the details on that on Patreon, but for those of you who are not currently Patreon subscribers, you get on board for as little as $2 a month. Just head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. Links in the description for this video. If you're watching on Twitch, links on the About Me tab. Head on over there. You'll get access to the Art Book Study Group. We do it twice a month, first and third Tuesdays. You also get access to a digital archive of my comics, so you can read those online. You get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord server where we share tips, tricks, process, works in progress, feedback, general art discussion. You get all that and more for as little as $2 a month. There are higher tiers for those who want to get additional rewards or just want to support the channel at a higher monetary fund, at a higher monetary level. But all of that is over on patreon.com/Jeremy. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, if you'd like to get work in progress, animated GIFs, blog posts delivered right to your inbox about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. If you would like to purchase physical copies of my comics, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That will forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can pick up my most recent comic book project, Morning Star. It's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8, the conclusion to the series. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character sketches, thumbnails, page layouts, script excerpts, photo reference. I basically show you how I put the whole comic book together. You get all of those at amazon.jeremy.net, and also on the homepage of the YouTube channel. For if you just go to youtube.com/Jeremy, you can see book flip throughs of the comic, so you can see what's inside before you pick it up. And again, like I said, guys, this Tuesday is going to be the next session of Art Book Study Group. And for those who sign on, there's hundreds of hours of existing Art Book Study Group videos already on there that are archived. You guys can go back and watch all the previous ones. They're up there. It's probably more than 100 hours worth of studying from art books. You guys can go check all of that out. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for the great conversation, the great insight, the great feedback. If you're having trouble with artwork, I hope maybe you try some of those top 3 tips plus zooming in. Thanks to Amar. Tip number 4, check all of those out and try that. See if that helps you assess what's going on with your piece and resolve some problems, kick it into high gear. So thanks so much for joining me. That's it for now. Go be creative.